Alright guys, this is the assembly video for the Vortex Razor HDs. These are the 13 by 39 by 56 millimeter objective compact spotting scopes. We're going to take two of these, we're going to mount them together on this setup from Adams Adapters. This is what you're going to get in your adapter kit, everything you see here. So you get a handle, you get this main base, you get two of these upper bases that will mount directly to the spotting scopes, 4 rings, and the tools and the hardware needed to put everything together. So the first thing we're going to do is simply mount the handle to the base. The front of the base is where you see Adams adapters. So we're going to mount this handle towards the back, just like this. To do that, all you need is a couple of these 1/4-inch bolts. No washers for this step, just the 1/4-inch bolts. And we're going to just simply drop the bolts through these holes, and we're going to use the 3rd hole from the back. So the front, Adams adapters, the back is where you see the V. We're going to go to the 3rd and the 4th hole. That's where we're going to mount the handle. When you set this handle up, what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to try to get this handle as straight as possible. You see there's some clearance in the handle, but if you can get that handle nice and straight before you tighten it up, what you can do is use this hole that's in the handle as a visual aid when you're glassing. You can look through the hole and can actually see which hill or which mountain you're on when you're looking out there for a few miles. So again, just get it as close to straight as you can eyeball. Tighten up these 2 screws, and that's done for now. You can set that to the side. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to mount one of these upper bases to the bottom base of the spotting scope. Now before we mount the bases or the rings, what we need to do is we need to get access to this little slot that's right here in this eyepiece. So these rubber eye cups are held on with this little band. If you want to use these bands while you're glassing, we need to move the band up to the front of the scope. It's up to you. Some guys don't like the bands floating around in the wind or hitting them in the face while they're glassing, so they actually take that off and just put them on and off as they need. But if you want to leave them mounted like this, all you have to do is just stretch that band out and push it up towards the base of the scope, because we need access to this ring right here. That's where we mount these rings that hold the scope to the base. So just roll this up, and then what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to put one eye cup facing to the left like this, and that would be your left scope, and then the other one will be the opposite. Just stretch this around, and that would be your right scope. So now that you have access to that ring right there, what we're going to do is we're going to mount this base to the scope. And the way that works is just with a flathead screw going through this countersunk hole right here directly to the threaded hole in the bottom of the base of the scope. Don't tighten that up all the way. We want that to be able to move around a little bit until we get the rings mounted. Then you have a left ring and a right ring. The counterbores for the screws will face up or out, just like this. Simply lay the ring around the left side and the other ring around the right side. Then you're going to use 2 of the number 6 bolts. So you've got a few different sizes here. These little tiny bolts are number 4s, and there's 2 different lengths. These 4 that are all the same are number 6 bolts. So you're going to use 2 of these number 6 bolts. Just drop them into those counterbores, and then we're going to snug those up. Now don't tighten it all the way, because you still need to move a couple things around. So what I do is I bottom them out and then just break them free, maybe a half turn or so, just so it can still move a little bit. Then in these 2 holes here, we're going to put the number 4 screws. The longer of the number 4 screws goes in the bottom hole, and the shorter of the number 4 screw goes in the top hole. Do the same thing as you did with the 6s, just bottom them out. Now that you've got all the screws, the rings, and in the base, now we can go ahead and snug everything up. So just what I do is I use the long end of the Allen wrench and just bottom those out. Do the same thing with the number 6s, just bottom them out. Then you can come in here with this flathead, you can actually tighten this one up, then go back, tighten up the number 6, and then tighten up these number 4s. Now this upper base assembly is tight and ready to be mounted to the main base. Now you just do that again for the other scope and you're ready to go. Okay, now you should have 2 assemblies that look like this. One of them should have the rubber eye cup strap on the left side of the scope. The other one should be on the opposite side, on the right side in this case. So you're going to have a left scope and a right scope. We'll mount them together this way so we can still access those rubber eye cups from the outside while we're using them. And the way you mount these up, pretty simple. There's 2 threaded holes in the bottom of the main, or the upper base here. Those line up with the slots in the bottom of the main base. So you just lay them over the top like that, and then just take a bolt and a washer and drop it in. And you're just going to put it in a couple of turns. And the only thing we're going to do is just get it so it holds the base on right now. We're not tightening anything up. And do the same thing. The slot at the bottom. Another bolt and a washer. Not tight because you still want to be able to move that thing. Just enough that it holds it together. Then flip the entire assembly around. And use the other 2 bolts and washers. Ready the last one. Then what I do is I just stand them up on the objectives, and you can see all the little indicator lines in the back. If you've watched my other video for checking your pupillary distance, you can use that video, and the sheet that you get with this setup will tell you which one of those lines corresponds with your pupillary distance. These are for reference. This is just to get everything close. Then you're going to take it out and you're going to collimate it, and you're going to move them around until everything gets lined up perfectly. But for now, you can just line it up with the lines that most closely lines up with your pupillary distance. Snug those. I just flip the entire assembly over. Do the same thing with the fronts. And then you can tighten it up all the way now, but you're going to go out and collimate it, so it doesn't have to be tight right now. But once you do collimate it, you want to snug all these things down so they don't move while you're using your big eyes. That's what your assembly should look like when you're done. Then, in order to mount this to a tripod, you've got a series of 1/4-inch threaded holes all the way down in the middle here. All you do is take your tripod adapter. This is the one for the Sirui VA5X. But whatever your tripod adapter is that you're using, and you just drop it into one of those threaded holes. Tighten it up. Now you're ready to mount this to your tripod. So now you've got these set up out of the box without any modifications at all. The closest you're going to get these things together is about 2 5/8. So in order to get down to the 2 5/8, you probably have to take these rubber cups off and get the objectives to touch. And once you get that down all the way, the next thing you might run into would be the rib on the top of these focusing knobs. If those things are hitting and you can't get it quite close enough, you can easily just shave those off, and that'll get it a little bit closer. If you do that and they still don't get down close enough, if your eyes are around 2.5 inches and you need to get them any closer than that, you have to do some modifications to the armor. So you'll have to literally remove this rubber focusing ring. It's kind of like a sock. It's just got a little bit of like rubber cement underneath it that holds that on there. And then something else you can do is removing the armor on the inside. So I've already done that to my set, and what they look like is this. So as you can see, the rubber around the focusing ring has been removed. and I actually took the armor out of the center all the way down, so these will actually go all the way down and touch the objectives. That'll get you down to a 2.5 inch pupillary distance. Now if you look real close, you can see that these focusing rings still work just fine, and there are actually holes in here that probably have screws or something underneath them, but they're all totally sealed. There's like a silicone in all of these holes. So by taking the rubber ring off the focusing knob or the armor out of the objective, you're not going to hurt these scopes at all. As a matter of fact, before I did this, I contacted Vortex and I made sure that doing this wouldn't void warranties or damage the scopes at all. So it's 100% okay. It's just another way to get these things a little closer. If you're right on the edge between 2.5 and 2 5/8 and you want to get these things close enough to use, that's a couple of things you can do to modify them. But once you do this, the next thing that hits is the actual aluminum from the objectives. So that's 2.5 inches, that touches, and that's as close as they're going to get. You're not going to get these any closer than that. So 2.5 inches with modifications, 2 5/8 without modifications.